Wow. Good evening. I hope you enjoyed our feature presentation. And there we go. Hopefully we don't ping in and out like that. But I just wanted to once again, before we get started, thank all the amazing organizations that came together to make this possible. And can you hear me if I don't use this?
I think
okay. Just Dakota Dyslexia, Georgia, which is near and dear to my heart. International Dyslexia Georgia branch, I think you're in the room. The Southern Poverty Law Center, and of course Georgia Library Services. We are just so grateful for you and our sister organizations. I think I see Reading Link Georgia in the room, and some Georgia Can people. So just a huge shout out to all of you who contributed, and also those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. So that we can talk more about how to end the reading wars. I am Missy Purcell, and I am a part of Dakota Dyslexia Georgia, but I am a friend in the field of all these other organizations and many of you in the room tonight. And like so many of you and our panelists that have joined us, I am a former educator, but also a parent of a child who was a casualty of the reading wars. And for our family, the struggle to help our son learn to read was deeply personal, but it led us to hope. And hope that every child in Georgia can receive the instruction and the support that they deserve to become confident and proficient readers. I love Hopeville. I've seen a lot of movies about dyslexia and the fight for the reading wars, but I love this one particularly because it deals with the solution. And as a former educator, I didn't know this solution either. And so thank you, Harvey, for highlighting and spotlighting the solution by putting a spotlight on the heartbreak that families experience when systems are failing them, but also giving the roadmap to the solution. And we know that is evidence-based reading instruction. And I personally know that, but I also know so many on this panel know how that can change lives and transform communities. And here in Georgia, the hope is alive. We've recently passed some legislation. We know that step one. The real work is going to be boots on the ground from so many of you in this room, but also some of the panelists that have joined us tonight. We've gathered an incredible group of voices to continue this conversation. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. I'm honored to introduce Harvey Hubbell, a friend, but also the producer of this film. We'll give him a nice little clap. He is an Emmy-winning filmmaker with over 55 awards, whose company, Capture Time Productions, has created documentaries that inspire social change. Among my favorite is the one we saw tonight. Diane Dragan, who you may recognize from the film. Officially, she's the owner of Dragan Law Firm, LLC, but she's also the Dakota Dyslexia Missouri board member and the Lifeline to Literacy board member. And you may recall seeing her in the film. And personally, Diane, I don't know if you know this, but when I was in the trenches just beginning to fight for my kid, Lindbergh Literacy was on repeat on my Facebook feed. And I saw you speak at a board, and I gained a little confidence to speak at my board. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for what you do. She currently, as you know, is a criminal lawyer, a former criminal lawyer. She spends her days now fighting systems that fail students to ensure that they can become proficient readers. And she does that to help every kid in the system, and it's something I'm incredibly proud of. So thank you for being here. She also just was here for IDA and came in early to be here and be part of this panel. So big round of applause for her. Allison Taylor is our next panelist. That's a little loud, sorry. I'm not good at holding the mic, as you can tell. It works when it doesn't work. But Allison is a veteran elementary teacher right here from Georgia. She has over 20 years of experience. And she currently teaches in one of my favorite districts in Georgia, which is Marion City Schools. And if you know me, I talk about it incessantly. I'm sorry. But it's because they're doing something right. They have figured out how to end the reading wars, and they're doing that. They're closing gaps for every kid in their district. And she's part of that. Yeah. She's been part of the change for over 5 years. She's a passionate advocate for structured literacy, and she believes that lives depend on reading and finds joy in helping every child gain confidence as a reader. Quick story about her. When we first met her, she told us that if she had to go back to teaching balanced literacy, she'd rather just quit. That's what we want for every teacher in Georgia, but also around this nation. Ramona Brown, on the end over there, is a professional development coach with 7 years of experience in literacy coaching and systems change. Exactly the people we need here in Georgia. She has led transformative literacy initiatives across multiple states, training hundreds of educators and presenting at national conferences, including ASCD and ISTE and the Reading League. And she's a former district reading teacher of the year. She is passionate about advancing equitable literacy for all students. Thank you, Ramona, for joining us tonight. Last and certainly not least, Ebony Brown. She is the coordinator of English language arts here in Georgia in Clayton County Public Schools, and she is the founder of Ebony Literacy. She actively contributes to Georgia's literacy landscape, serving on the Georgia Department of Education ELA Advisory Council and also our HQMI Review Committee. She also champions literacy equity as a fellow of the Reading League's Educators of Color Committee. So as you can see, let's give her a big hand first of all. Each of our panelists brings an incredibly unique perspective to this conversation and a lived experience in education. I really could talk with this group all night. I told Ebony when she came in I could just ask you 100 questions and never get bored. But we do have limited time, so I want to dive right in because I want you to hear some of their perspectives. I'm going to start with Harvey. These are out beside me. But I would just kind of like to ask you, Harvey, you've obviously done a lot of work between the first Dyslexia documentary and then Hopeville. I want to know what's next for Harvey. Can you talk to us about, at the end, we all had to scan a QR code about advocacy, and how do you want to help states move literacy forward?
Well, this is my last film this is my last film. I'm thinking about getting into the airline business now. I don't know if I can do this, if I can ask. I need funding for airline business. I want to call it Good Enough Airlines. Just give me a minute here. I got a platform, I'm up here. So we guarantee 30% of you will get there. The rest of you guys, you're on your own. What do you think? Is it a good idea for an airline? Good enough. If it's good enough for our kids, it's good enough for your airline. That's what I'm figuring. No, thank you. As Missy said, you know, the people that are in the room, you guys are the change maker. We might be up here right now, but you guys, there's the team of people that you brought together, it's huge. And in the advocacy toolkit, one of the things, you know, you make a picture and you lock the picture. You know, we try to tell a lot of stories. We don't teach people how to read. You guys teach people how to read. You guys work on that stuff, one way or another. We show complicated information and make it possible that you know, moms, dads, educators, we make it so simple that even policymakers can understand it. So, you know, we want this film shown in front of policymakers. We want everybody in this room, if you're an activist, to be on our advocacy toolkit. You know, you saw the QR code we have. You've seen some of these postcards around, and we have flyers. Get involved in our advocacy toolkit. Say what you do. Help other parents, help other educators, and help decision makers. We were talking to Christine about coming back to Georgia. We'd love to work with you guys, love to work with the universities, anything we can do. We don't teach people how to read. We show people information, and panel discussions like this and Q&A questions, this is where really people get engagement. So I appreciate the platform, and if the film doesn't work out, I am going to start an airline.
I'm not sure any of us are going to choose to fly on it.
Well, you send your kids to school.
Exactly.
Well, okay.
It was like a gamble.
Maybe I'll stick around in the film business. I don't know.
I definitely think you should.
All right.
I appreciate how you made it so simple for everyone to understand what the reading wars are and what the solution is, because it seems to be really hard for a lot of people to grasp that concept, but you make it so easy for people to understand.
If I can understand it, that's what I take a long time to make films, you know, and if I can understand it, anybody can understand it. And, you know, I talked to, you know, Margie Gillis, Ben, you know, all the guys that are up in Connecticut, and all the researchers and educators. we go through this footage and we want to make sure that we can get this information out to, who do I want to see it? I thought it was the school superintendents, the vice superintendents, because the school superintendents get 70 emails a day. So the vice superintendents are important, the curriculum chiefs are important, but you know who is really important? The Board of Education chairmen, right?
Yes.
The Board of Education chairmen, and so all of you guys can get out there and talk to them and get the information to them and tell them, listen, we want our kids to read. It's all about, these scores are all on the, how's our school doing? How's our state doing? Can we do better? And we only have a couple of years with our kids. You know, we only have a couple of years, and just one more thing that I want to say. How many people here are dyslexic in the crowd? Okay, so this word, learning disabled, I mean, I know a lot of people use it. We made a film a couple years ago called Dyslexia the Movie, where we believe it's a difference, not a disability. If the school system can't educate us by 4th grade, then they've disabled us. You see, and I just want to say one more thing really fast. When I was a kid back in kindergarten in 1964, you know, I lived in a great nation called the United States of America. It was a melting pot. And I was like, wow, what a great idea. There was like a lot going on, we could do better. But as I got older, I'm 66 years old now, we live in a tossed salad. America is a tossed salad. And the science of reading, which back in the days of Dyslexia the Movie, the Decoding Dyslexia mom said, wait a minute, the science of reading is good for everybody. You know, second language learners, your zip code, whatever. So that's true. And if we're a mixed salad, our educators have to be able to get us to wherever we are and reach us at whatever level we're at. And we don't have a lot of time. That's why we did the film the way we did. Yeah. It's a clock ticking. That's what 1st grade is. And they got to pass them to a 2nd grade teacher. And there's a 2nd grade teacher's job. Anyway, I've talked too much.
I think you may have stolen my next question for you too. But I do want you to ask this one specifically, or answer this one specifically. We have a lot of people in the room with dyslexia, and a lot of kids, and some adults. And what would you tell them? All these people who are struggling to learn to read and write.
Well, okay, I'll be really fast on that. I believe I'll be fast on that. And again, we said it in the other film. Dyslexia is very good to me. You know, I like dyslexia. I'm a whack job. I can't figure. Hey, Megan, how do I get on that bus to get to the school tour? Do you know?
I'll find out.
See, I just compensated. That was a compensating mechanism because I knew you could do that. I knew you'd be able to. I don't know. Don't email me. Whatever you do, I don't read my emails.
He doesn't.
You know, talk to Misty, talk to Diane, find me that way, and they'll get you hold of Olivia, and who will talk to me. So compensating mechanisms. There's some stuff we're all really good at. And there's some stuff we're really bad at. You know, you don't want me doing your taxes. I'm dyscalculus. You don't want me writing your Valentine's Day cards. I'm dysgraphic, you know, and I can't spell. So there's things you're good at, things you're bad at. Get good at the things you're not so good at, and the things that you're good at, excel at. Is that an answer?
That's perfect. We have someone on the panel with us tonight who helps kids actually do that. It's Allison over here to my right. Allison, I don't know if you want to try or just.
I got the teacher
She
voice.
doesn't need a microphone.
Teacher voice works.
We know that you're from area city schools, and if you're in Georgia, or you know any of us, it's something we talk about a lot. So I'm looking at Sherry right now. We're constantly singing the praises because we love to see the work you're doing because you're closing gaps for every single kid in the district. So I just wanted to ask you, because in the film, they spend a lot of time talking about how critical those first few months of school are, and how there's a rush to get from August to October because they know once they get to November and December, things are going to get kind of hairy. Kids are going to get sick, and there's going to be some snow, not here in Georgia, but up north. I just want to know, what does the first few weeks look like in Marietta with screening and implementing targeted support?
Absolutely. So I teach at A.L. Burris Elementary School. We've got about 400 students in our school, and we are on year 5 of our literacy journey. So it's been 5 years that we have really kind of leaned in to structured literacy and kind of how that paradigm shift is shifting things for our students. So to quote our explicit instruction queen, Anita Archer, everyone does everything. And that's true in our classrooms, but that's also true for our staff. So we have got it down where we're not talking October, we're talking August. So by the first 2 weeks of school, I'm building relationships because I'm a homeroom teacher. I'm building relationships, I'm setting procedures, I'm getting to know my students as the tiny little precious humans that they are that I get to spend all of my time with. And then everyone else in the building is our SWEET team, and they're assessing. So if you're a reading specialist, if you are a library parapro, if you are in the building, we have trained you. And within the first 2 weeks of school, for every single one of my students, I have an informal decoding inventory that tells me about their phonological awareness. I'm doing a Hegarty assessment. I've got an oral reading fluency on every single child. I've got a RAN assessment on every single child. And I've got a spelling inventory for every single child. So I am not just looking at one little piece or another little piece. I am looking at a whole profile of my students as readers. And then the great thing about that is after 2 weeks, we all come together. And I mean top, bottom, counselors, MTSS specialists, principals, everyone comes into the room and we talk about who the child is, but what the data shows. So no decision is left to chance. I made a conversation with a few people today that the best thing about balanced literacy is nothing. And the best thing about structured literacy is that structure gives you a path. And that path tells you what to do. And so then we can look at all of this rich data that we have from a student and decide, does this child need phonological awareness, phonemic awareness? Is there a problem, an encoding problem or a decoding problem? And then that's when we can get to our targeted support. So in that first 2 or 3 weeks, we have got every single child placed in a group with the exact skill that they need to move them forward as a reader. So it gives us that rich history, and we have students now who are in 5th grade. And so we have 5 years worth of this data that we're doing oral reading fluency once a month, that we're assessing students with a progress monitoring every 3 weeks. So where it used to be that we would just test them in August and then we'll see where you're at in December, and hopefully you're not a level C anymore, even though nobody knows what an FMP level C was. We are able to use numbers. And the great thing about that is we actually just finished parent-teacher conferences last week, and I was able to put those numbers in front of parents and have really courageous conversations with parents that did not have the I feel and I think conversation starter at all. It had the I know and I can show you. And it's so powerful to be able to talk to parents as struggling readers, or to be able to look at a student and say, I have a path for you now. And within the first 2 weeks of school, we create that path because we know there's not a second to lose.
Yeah, over here. Nodding, yes. Wow, so before the first month of school is over, those kids, you know exactly what's going on, and you're already beginning that instruction.
You're starting your second cycle by Labor Day.
That is
your second 3-week cycle is starting.
We're not wasting time. We're getting in there, and I love the part about structure gives us a path.
Yeah.
Amazing. I can't go back in time, but I wish my child had you. But you give me hope for all the Matthews.
Thank you.
Going forward. So we've been talking a lot in Georgia. We have literacy laws in place, lots of legislation to kind of impact what happens in the classroom. And one of those laws really addresses literacy coaches. And I know Marion City Schools has done a lot of work, especially recently with literacy coaches. I just want to hear you kind of expand upon that a little bit, like how they've supported the work you've done and how they've helped you be able to create this, I don't want to call it a miracle, because that's not a miracle. Science.
It's hard
call
work.
it science.
It's hard work.
Hard work. It's called hard work.
It is called hard work, because it is. And I think the way that Marietta did it was so impactful is before I even, and I started my career with reading mastery. I started my career here, and then slowly we let it all trickle away. We don't know where and how it left, but all of a sudden it was if I give you a beanbag, you can be a reader, not if I give you a thing. And so what really helped was my superintendent made it a non-negotiable. It was a non-negotiable that we were going to be focused on literacy. We knew there was a problem, we just didn't know what to do with it. And so it started with him being trained and then went directly to our cabinet. Again, before teachers even knew that this was like coming down a pipeline, we had superintendent, cabinet, board members, and principals trained. And then we were like, oh, we've been doing this for a year and now it's your turn. And so at that point, we were getting, and I see Nick Philman up there, who is a major part of what we were doing. And so we were actually we have a district coach, Mary Hannah Gaddis, is a science of reading district thing. She's working with board policy and things that are coming from the state and the new ELA standards and making sure like those are working within structured literacy. So that coach umbrella then goes to structured literacy coaches in every single building that spend 2 weeks with us. And I'm in year 5 and they spent the entire week this week and all of next week they will be in our classrooms. So the big part is like the coaching doesn't stop. We have a school-based coach that's there every single day, and it's not just that the coaches are there, it's the cycles that we use. So things like parallel coaching where they'll walk in and it's not like, well, you could have done this and I'm going to write it on a post-it and stick it in your box and next week when you go to your box you'll find that feedback. We do feedback in real time because that coach is in that room and we know it's not punitive. I mentioned to Tina the other day that for 2 years, not a single TEKS evaluation was in English and language arts. Not one. Because we didn't want it to be punitive. We didn't want you to think when an adult was walking in the room that they were coming to get you or to see, did you do a turn and talk? Do you have, your vowel valley on the wall? It was none of that. It was them learning and us learning at the same time. So I really think that constant desire for knowledge that came from the top down and it builds that coaching piece where everyone just is thirsty for more because we see what it's doing. When you see, like you said in the video, that 70% of the kids are meeting or exceeding, why would you not want to run towards that? And the coaching is a really big part of it.
And I love that you said it's not a one and done.
No.
5 years in and they're still showing up, you're still getting feedback.
I still got to walk through this week.
That kids need feedback and we're teaching them to read. They need that immediate corrective feedback.
Absolutely.
We're really no different, right? Even though we're bigger kids, we still need that same support level. You are definitely, I call you a city on the hill in Georgia. You are a bright light shining and the moves that you're making, I think, can be a guidebook for so many districts. Yeah. Kind of like the one we saw in the film as well. Yeah, so thank you, Allison, so much. I'm going to turn this way a little bit. I'm going to flip it around my seat over here because Ebony, I'm so excited to have you here.
Excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming in. You came highly recommended by an audience member over here. So, you're doing some great work in Clayton County. So I mentioned earlier, she is from Clayton County, which is here in Georgia, and she works with the Georgia Department of Education ELA Advisory Council as well, correct? Yes. And so given your work on that council and the high quality instructional materials review committee, what are the most significant challenges you see in ensuring that state-approved science of reading aligned materials and policies are effectively implemented by teachers and coaches in a large district like Clayton? Because we know Marietta, a lot of people like to say, well, they're small, right? They have a little bit more flexibility to make that happen because they're a smaller district. They have less schools to make that impact in. So how are you taking these lessons and transferring that into some of the larger districts? We know here in Metro Atlanta, there's a lot of us large districts. So how are you doing that over there in Clayton?
So one of the things, just connecting it back to Hopeville, we saw that it stated for prisons that the fiscal impact was not to be calculated because it was just that big. But then we think about in Georgia, we have a House bill that requires us to make certain decisions to adopt certain curriculums and provide that high quality instructional material. But the funding is a big piece, no matter how large or how small your district is, that we are missing as a state. So we need more funding to do that, okay, more moolah. The other thing that we have to think about when we think about Clayton County is understanding that we have so many teachers, and then we have teachers coming with various backgrounds of knowledge. So in the film, it talked about in our pre-service institutions, whole language, balanced literacy may be the exposure for a lot of our teachers. The great thing that we've been able to do in the state of Georgia and in Clayton County Public Schools is allow our teachers or mandate teachers to take the science of reading modules that we have through Cox Campus. And so in that Georgia Learns platform, we require all of our teachers that come in contact with K-3 students, well really we did all of our K-5 teachers to take those science of reading modules. What that did for us was it gave us an even playing field. So we didn't have to wonder, does this teacher understand? Does this teacher understand? We know that all teachers have been exposed. The other thing that's a challenge is, as our other panelists shared, they have specialist literacy coaches. We have one coach that has to lift the load in all buildings. And so just trying to make sure that we are providing coaches targeted support and training, so making sure that that's implemented on a monthly basis. But then we also have phenomenal partnerships like the Rollins Center that comes in and helps us develop those skills with the science of reading and making sure that our educators are well equipped. And then we put a focus on our principals. Long ago, we would say that our leaders in the building were there for what? Discipline, cafeteria duty, those types of things. Now we require so much more of our leaders. We require our principals, our assistant principals, those people that are in those positions to be well-versed and knowledgeable so that because they're there every single day, they're able to go into the classrooms, they're able to provide that immediate feedback. And we found that that might be a challenge, but if we put those job-embedded opportunities through principals meetings, coaches meetings, embedded supports and structures, be it virtual, in person, we try to alleviate all barriers and obstacles to make sure that we're really lifting literacy in our school district and building not just our educators that are boots on the ground, but also our leadership district level included.
Wow. Woo. I think that funny, a lot of us sit around in circles and we talk about what needs to be done. And one thing that comes up often is we wish that the leaders in the school, the local schools, understood the science of reading just as well as the teachers.
Yes.
Because if you're walking into the classrooms and you're trying to see what's going on, if you don't know where they need to go, how do you know what you're observing? And how do you know how to help them move to what's next?
Correct. And then I would also say the additional scoop of support, and one of the things that we try to alleviate the barrier on would be our parents and our families, our caregivers. So we talk a lot within our school district about how can we bridge the gap. So we know what we're responsible for as educators and as a school system, but we also have parents and families and caregivers that need that same information. So we offer in our district parent universities in person, virtual as well, and all of our activities are around the science of reading.
Love it.
Wait a minute, can I just say something?
Yes.
Here's the love story between me and her. Like last week, she was on a panel in Chicago, and I ran into you, and I had no idea we were going to be on the same panel this week. And she was saying this stuff, and I was like, this is right on. I mean, K through 5, but parents and teachers, look at me, I'm an idealist. You know, parents and teachers getting it. Why? To help the kids?
Yes.
Well, let's make America great.
Yes.
Forget about great again. Let's just make America great. You know, let's get the parents and the teachers. So it's a love story. I mean, I ran into her last week. We're here now. And this is what I'm talking about, the community. Look what you guys have in your community. You know, you have unity in community. Make it happen.
And you're going beyond the law.
You're going beyond the law.
That right there, to me, is such a lesson for our districts and people who are advocating for change in their districts, is that the law is kind of the bare minimum, right?
Correct.
The training, that initial training, I love how you said, we go through the first module, those first learning moments, but then we take it further, right, by partnerships too. Yeah, that's something that Mary Schools has done quite well, is the partnership. So we can't take it all on our own. Maybe we don't have the funding. How can we create partnerships?
How can we create those partnerships? And the interesting thing is when we look out into our community has the same desire that we do as educators. So if we're all desiring the same thing, we should all be able to develop a plan. And partners, when we talked about dollars, sometimes they have dollars that they can dedicate. Mm-hmm. And so it's just about what we can do to partner with someone else to see how they can pour back into our smaller community, but build a bigger community.
And don't forget the universities, guys. There's universities where they're pushing out new educators, and the educators might be getting the old program. They might be getting last week's program. They might be getting last decade's program. You know, what you've been doing for 5 years down there, you got the numbers and statistics on. And you know we're going to bring everybody together, you know. That's what I'm saying. Any opportunity we have to get together, you know, we're here to see the film, but listening to this panel is where the action happens.
Absolutely, and I felt the same way about Harvey.
I love her.
I know, she's amazing. She's really amazing. And she's a Georgia girl.
And we're sitting here right now. Last week, Chicago.
I know. This is what literacy does to us. All right. I know that you also serve on the Reading League's Educators of Color Committee, and you're also the founder of Ebony Literacy. So I just want to take a minute to unpack how the things you've learned, the insights and your experience between those two organizations and efforts have helped you gain a greater insight on how we support our marginalized students and their families. I love the part where you said we have parent universities. I could only dream about that 10 years ago. So thank you. But we know that so many kids who fall into those marginalized categories are overlooked even in this conversation about reading worse. And so how can Georgia be a little bit better centered to push true equity and voice and representation?
So representation, voice, equity, all of those things are highly important. When we think about what a book does for a student, we know that books unlock and give you complete freedom. We know that books also can be intimidating if you don't know how to read. So what we have to do is ensure that the books that we're providing, that we're not choosing books that don't have some mirror images, but also utilizing those same books to be not windows, but doors to the world, to be able to see and understand others. And so I think that that's one of the most important things, is making sure that the decodable readers that we're selecting, that they have some mirror images in them as well, that they're talking about topics that children can relate to, but also serving the purpose of what they're there for, which is to support, reinforce those skills that they're working on in their classroom. I also think that we have to, as educators, remember our perceptions are very impactful. So before we start our work, we need to ensure that we are saying, yes, if I follow these steps, structured literacy, using the science of reading, that yes, these scholars, no matter what they represent, where they come from, that they can read. The research says 95% of students with the correct instruction can read. So why would we not have a country full of readers? It's about our mindset and then the actions that we take thereafter. And also just understanding, last week I shared on the panel, week before last, that we have to understand those factors that do impact marginalized communities. So we have parents who are juggling multiple children who are on different levels. We have work schedules that impede just being able to implement a routine. But one of the most critical things that we can do, instead of just handing a parent, those toolkits that they pass out at the literacy festivals and workshops, open up the toolkit, teach the parent how to use it. And it may not be the whole toolkit at one time, because if you're a parent, you're novice to this, you're new to this, so you just need that one strategy that you can go home, implement with your scholar, with any book that they pick up, and now you have somebody lived in literacy at home too, and it's going to make a beautiful bridge and just help everybody in the end.
Ooh, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of the partnership with parents and giving them one thing that they can do to be successful. When they're better at that, you can add a new layer to that. And helping them unpack it, you're right, we send home bags of stuff and papers galore, and it's overwhelming because you're trying to buy school supplies and pay for lunches and get ready to go, and then there's all this other stuff and it gets lost.
It does.
But what an impact to partner with them, truly partner with them and unpack it with them and almost teach them how to teach the kids, right? Walking with them truly.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Ebony, gosh, we'll keep talking.
Okay.
I do want to give our other panelists some time, but I may come back.
Okay.
Ramona, down there, I can kind of see you down there.
It doesn't help that I'm a little short.
Yeah, but you have some mighty words to say, and you're doing some mighty work, and we're, once again, Georgia, we have so many great people in the trenches doing so many good things, which does give us so much hope for what tomorrow can look like in Georgia. And you have so much experience from not just Georgia, but from other states that you brought with you here. Yes. So we're grateful for that. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into, she talked about the benefit of getting coaching, right? But I want you to kind of dive into how can districts facilitate literacy coaching to effectively implement structured literacy, because this is where we are in Georgia right now. We've had a literacy law for a couple of years, And now this year it's been refined. We're really boots on the ground trying to do it. We have varying degrees of what that looks like across the state of Georgia. So how can districts take that next step toward some of this greatness that we've been talking about tonight?
Absolutely. So for Rollins, coaching is one of those major levers on our wheel of equitable outcomes that we know is a game changer. We know that from lessons from Mississippi, and in my work in South Carolina and now in Georgia, there's a commonality that I've seen in districts that are successful and districts that are not successful. It begins with a very clear vision of what is coaching, because there's often blurred lines where sometimes coaches are used as evaluators, which defeats the whole purpose of it. And then there's also not only the district has to be very clear in the training that is to be provided and the benefits for teachers. The coach-principal agreement, where the roles between the principal and the coach are clearly understood, and that coaches have that opportunity to develop their own personal knowledge. Meaning they need time to go in and provide professional development. They need opportunities to be able to model, to tool up their toolkit as well. So setting those level expectations by providing the environment where coaches themselves can grow, where the roles are clear, is essential for a successful coaching system.
And once again, echoing Ebony, that relationship with the principal, right? That agreement, that is so critical to ensure that they're on the same page as where their teachers are, so they can help them move forward as well. I just want to echo that and punctuate that over and over. We are seeing right now an attempt to do coaching in Georgia. We're working really hard. Nick out there is doing it daily. He's trying. He's doing a great job. We know he did a great job in Marietta, and he's trying to take that message and spread it across Georgia. But what role do coaches play in bridging the gap between the theory of what this could look like and then actual daily practice?
Yes, so the knowledge to practice is a key hallmark of the work that we do with the Rollins Center, because we know this knowledge has been around for decades, right? So the big question is, why hasn't it taken hold? Well, just like the science tells us that children need deliberate practice, the exact same principle applies to anything that you're trying to do and trying to do well. The science says that 10,000 hours of practice is needed in order for you to master anything. So why wouldn't we apply that? Traditionally, what we've been doing is it's been sit and get, where there's an information dump. However, there has not been that connection where I, as a coach, sit side by side with you, look at the data, help to make data-driven decisions so that your instructional efforts are done with precision, with that support on the side as a thinking partner, with co-planning and helping to learn how to use resources, creating that safe space, creating that collaborative learning environment. All of that is what the coach can bring to the table if those conditions are set from the top.
So what I'm hearing you say is that coaches are a critical part of this success.
Absolutely. And Mississippi that's one of the things that is missed in the story about Mississippi, is that the coaches were a critical piece in that turnaround. It wasn't just that the science was shared, but the coaches worked side by side, and they were supported in actually being coaches.
And that sit and give, as a former balanced literacy teacher who actually took structured literacy training with Brenda Fitzgerald and didn't remember it because I was in a balanced literacy school and I found the notebook when I was moving in the year 2021, and I sat on the floor of my massively messy house that I was packing up and started crying because I had written down structured literacy, dyslexia, 44 phonemes. I had made the cards, the drill cards. You know what happened? It died in a notebook. Because I didn't have anyone to help me take it from theory to practice in my classroom. So if I'd had a coach, can you imagine the difference I could have made in the lives of those kids? So what you're doing is so critical for our teachers to not become a casualty of a sit and get.
Yes, and that feedback piece is also essential, because if you practice it wrong, then you know that you get the results.
Exactly.
That you get, right?
Yes.
And so they play a critical role when set up for success.
Amazing. Well, if we can just clone you and just spread you out all over Georgia, that would be the best thing ever. I'm going to take a little hard turn to the literally left over here because I don't want to leave out a critical part of this conversation. And you and I sit in a similar seat. Parents.
Yes.
All right, and advocates. And how did you describe yourself on that text thread?
Oh, I don't, what was it?
Crazy,
Some sort of, yeah.
litigious.
No, yeah. I would have never pictured myself in this chair until someone said, you know, your kids can't read. And that was not something I was going to accept. So, I mean, that, I think we were both in that space. I wasn't an educator, but I have 5 kids. The first 2 learned to read perfectly. I did. I read early, I read easy, I read a lot. And then my 3rd kid was the kid who would come home from school and rip up his homework so you couldn't make him complete it, break his pencil and throw it across the room, call himself stupid. And that's when I turned to the educators in my balanced literacy district who did not know how to help him and were unable to help him. And that first kid I took to a private dyslexia school in St. Louis, $40,000 for 2nd grade. That's what I paid for one child to go to a school with the kind of training that, you know, public schools are supposed to offer. It was a huge sacrifice. I didn't have that money sitting around. And then the next 2, I could see it. Once you've seen a dyslexic, once you've seen the symptoms, you're like, uh-oh, that one too. And that's when I realized I had 3 that I came back and brought the fight to my public school and tried to make changes there. First just for my kids, and then for a lot of kids, so.
Well, you're a hero to many of us parents if you don't know it, because like I mentioned earlier, we're watching you fight. We're watching you go up to the board meetings. And then your background as a criminal defense lawyer. I wonder, given the work that you do now with the experience, the road that you've walked with your own kids, we have parents in the room, some of them are just beginning this journey. And so when is it time to seek legal counsel rather than working with an advocate? I advocate for kids all the time. I know the answer to that question. I know this is beyond what I can do to support you. But you know, what factors should families consider when making that decision?
So, I mean, nobody jumps right to an attorney, and when people come to me, I push them out to advocates whenever I can. You know, keep in mind, parents don't pick school districts thinking this is the one I want to sue. Like, we all move into a place and we send our kids to schools assuming they're going to learn to read. And not everybody picks it up immediately. You know, we saw this film was really about 1st grade. If your kid is not reading at the end of 1st grade and you haven't started at least a referral process, an evaluation process to figure out, is it something more? You know, if you're in a school with poor literacy curriculum, half the kids at least aren't going to learn to read, and it's going to be hard to find the dyslexics. If you're in a school district that is using good curriculum and, you know, good support and has these things, and that child's still not learning to read, that's when you need to start the process. Generally, people come to me as an attorney because the school district has refused to even start an evaluation, or they've done an evaluation and they refuse to provide services. The most unfortunate ones that come to me are middle school and high school kids who are still reading on a first and second grade level. And they've been in intervention, and they've been getting whatever the school thought was the best thing out there for them. And then they come to me and I get schools to pay for appropriate intervention. Sometimes it's paying to bring people in to a school and get the training in there. Sometimes it's paying for an outside program. But when your kid is struggling and the school is not responsive, start with an advocate. Start there. Most good advocates are going to know when they've hit the end of their rope. What I usually say when someone calls me is you come to an attorney when it's going to cost money. So when the school is not willing to do the service and you're going to need a private dyslexia school, or you're going to need, you want reimbursed for the tutoring because there is no science of reading person in your district and you want to pay for it, that's generally when you come to an attorney. But nobody comes to me with a lot of hope. I'm probably the least hopeful one on the panel because by the time kids to get to me, they've been failed. And they've been failed by teachers who didn't mean to fail them. It's generally, my problem is rarely with the teacher. It's with the systems put in place that the teachers are forced to follow. It's the fear of referring kids to get the help that they need. It's a wait to fail approach that's kind of set up within the law that we want this gap to grow to say, oh, look, there's the gap. It's time to help. When these guys will all tell you the best time to help them is kindergarten, first grade. Get those things solid. So, no one wants to come to me, but generally when you get there, you need to be there.
Well, what I would say is in the middle of states trying to move toward a Hopeville, it's going to be fraught with mistakes, right? And kids still falling through the cracks. Because a lot of the legislation laws are K through 3. Some school districts are doing better. They're extending that K through 5. Marietta's working in middle and high school now, but that's rare. So you do provide hope for families who need an immediate solution because waiting does nothing to help a child. I'm sure that you probably give advice all the time to parents, but I just hope I do know there are some parents in the room tonight and they really are in a moment where their kids are just being identified or they haven't even been identified yet. They just know there's something going on. So what would you say to a parent tonight to kind of give them hope for a solution of how to move forward if they're noticing their kid is in a school situation and those gaps are not being closed, it's getting wider, the kid's getting older? What would you say?
I mean, parents, you trust your gut. Some of the early teachers that worked with my first kid made me question my gut. And they said, hey, your first kids were gifted, they read quickly. This is an average kid. This is what it looks like. And that really delayed my journey in getting that kid help. So trust your gut with your kid, ask for help, educate. Every state in the country has a parent advocacy organization that they're required to fund through the federal government. There's some resources there. Decoding dyslexia in every state is a great starting point to get some help. I have more training, and I say this is no offense to any of the teachers, I have more training than some of the teachers because I decided I was going to take the Wilson reading program. I taught myself so that I knew what my kids needed, and parents go to all lengths for their kids. I think I'm an example of the lengths one will go when your kid doesn't learn to read. It was board meetings, showing up all the time. I interviewed with, Harvey. I was part of Emily Hanford's journey. I was writing newspaper articles. I was doing anything I could to raise awareness about the literacy issues. And the other thing I would say is find your people. This dyslexia is 1 in 5. So find your people, work together, and, attend each other's IEP meetings, show up to board meetings together, show up with each other, because there's definitely power in numbers. And that's, I think, what Decoding Dyslexia found, that's what the IDA found, is there's power in numbers, and do not, take no for an answer for your kid. Do not let that struggle happen. I remember at one point, someone looked at me in the school system, and won't name names, in my school system, and said the educators make the decisions here. We don't listen to the parents. We are the professionals. But they weren't. They were balanced literacy through and through. They had not had the training they needed to help my child. But there was a couple in the building that would whisper in my ear, keep going, you're making a difference, you know? And I have a lot of teachers that support what I do, because if you're a good teacher in a balanced literacy district, you want me showing up, you know? So I would just say, don't give up on your kids. Do not lower expectations. That's the most frustrating thing that I see, is when we lower expectations for our children because we've labeled them dyslexic. If you teach that kid the way they learn, they're soaring. So just, you know, keep after it, keep going, and fight for your kids, because you're the only one that's going to fight for them consistently throughout. You know, teachers change, schools change. Sometimes you move. You're the advocate, and, you know, don't take no.
Advocates bring home too. Well, we're going to wrap up because I think we've just about outrun our time. But I do just want to say, first of all, thank you to all of these amazing panelists tonight for joining this conversation. Whether or not you believe it, you are hope. You are a way forward for so many different people in this this journey that Georgia's taking to hopefully change our reading proficiency levels. Harvey, is there any last thing you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess for the schools, you know, for the schools have to see it. See, we get together and we talk. There's teacher turnover. It's like 8% of the teachers say, you know, I don't want to be a teacher after this, because they started off the university and they didn't continue on, and another 8% gets lured away by the district down the road that pays them a little bit more. So that happens next year too, and the year after that. So teacher training is big, but we can head them off the path by getting to the young educators at the universities and taking the same group and going down the street to the universities and doing the same roadshow again, you know? And for the schools, I just want to know, they can do it the easy way, or they can do it the hard way. They can meet Diane Dragan. So, you know, we're all in this together. We just want our kids to learn how to read, and we have the ability to do it. And if we know how to do it, why don't we do it? Science of reading.
That's a perfect way to wrap up tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to pass the remote back over here to our lovely GLS. Any final words?
Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you.